Welcome back, Comic Geeks, to another month of Absolute Universe recaps. We are going to be filling you in on everything that happened in DC's Absolute Universe, from
That's
Batman
right.
to Green Lantern. So let's buckle right in and get down to it. Jay, are you ready to give us a summary of everything that happened in Absolute Batman #7?
I am. So as I'm gonna say as usual, we usually forget. We're gonna start with the creative team.
Yes.
This is coming at us from writer Scott Snyder. The normal artist is Nick Dragata, but we have another fill-in artist this issue, which is Marcus Martin. A little bit more similar in style this time instead of the great departure we had in issue 5. I want to say.
I
Um,
think issue 4.
I don't think
I
that's right.
believe I believe
Well,
Wonder Woman's arc ended with issue 5.
no, maybe you're right. Anyway,
I have
that
thoughts
feels
on
too
this
early.
artist.
In any case, we open on a young Victor Freeze in Tanzania, and he is going to see a glacier that is on a mountain. Interestingly, fun time. Uh, Honestly, that scene did very little, but
Yeah,
it was like Victor Freeze. Uh,
I think what it
so
was supposed to establish was the bleeding eyes of the child
hmm.
to like show that he's ill in some way.
But in the present, we see Bruce's friends having a memorial, which I think is meant to be assumed to be for Bruce, since they think he's, dead at the end of the last issue. But we very quickly learn that it is for Mitchell Matches Malone. And Bruce appears shockingly to his friends and explains that he met with Matches recently about Arc M. And we
That's
also
right.
find out that ever since the Black Mask situation, which is established to be, I believe, a month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah, I didn't write that down for some reason, but I think anyway, it's
'Cause I
been
believe
Gotham's been under martial law since that point.
which creates a
Yeah,
really awesome Gotham. Like I think we've talked about it like every time we've talked about Absolute Batman. I love when like the powers that be in the city are
yeah,
anti-Batman. Like I like when Jim Gordon is kind of the only one who's like, actually, let's trust this guy. Like I don't like
yeah.
it when
I do
everybody's
think
on board with Batman.
there's an argument to be made that it's a little bit of a samey direction with the Peacemakers thing in Superman. But
That's fair.
I do in general
Mhm.
like the concept of it, but in any case, in this meeting, Matches reveals that he was supposed to get work papers for Bruce to go work in Arc M, but instead he did get the papers, but he's been working there himself. And he tells Bruce that it is already up and running before blood starts to pour out of his pores and
Horrifying.
ears in a horrifying visual that's super cool. And he collapses dead in front of Bruce. I thought that moment so good.
I wanted
Uh,
to vomit
but in any
in
case,
a way that I think was intended.
yeah, no, absolutely. But in any case, Bruce gets a little bit of info off Matches Malone. Importantly, he sees Dr. Victor Freeze's name on a list of doctors and researchers that are, presumably potentially connected. And Victor Freeze is the only name on there that he knows is located in Gotham. There's a lab in Gotham for his
But there
company,
are
V Corp.
there are other names
Yes,
on there that
there
we
are. I think
recognize.
Emily
We've got
Isley, I
Hugo
remember being on there.
Strange. I
Yeah,
presume Hugo. We've
yeah,
also got Isley for Poison
yeah.
Ivy, and the other ones I don't know that we can quite make out.
Yeah. But in any case, Bruce then goes into full Batman mode to go through the martial law Gotham in a fairly cool sequence while he also is talking to Alfred. Alfred tells him that whatever happened to Matches was not, in fact, a bioweapon like Bruce had suspected, but in fact a bacterium. Bruce makes it into the V Corps building where he changes back into his civilian clothes in the ducks, and he tries to pass himself off as, well, he is a city engineer, but he tries to pass that off as the reason that
Is
he's
he?
there. Yeah, he works in the city. I don't know. City
He's
engineer
like
feels
a
like a fancy word for construction worker.
guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure
don't
that's
know.
what a
I
city.
think a city
think
engineer
that's,
is an actual thing.
yeah, and I think it's related to, I don't know. It feels like a kind of thing Bruce does in this life. So in any case, he meets Victor Freeze Jr. Importantly, there, who reveals that both of his parents, the original Victor Freeze and Nora, are both frozen in ice near their death, as we learn that V-Core freezes people who are at death until cures can be found. And Victor Freeze quickly reveals that he was actually the first success of this program. But as Bruce is trying to look into things while Victor is seemingly, villain monologuing, Victor turns into this monstrous form that I'm glad Katie is showing, because I don't know that I had a good description for it. And he kind of attacks Bruce immediately. Yeah. In
like necrotic dead skin.
Yeah, a lot of frostburn.
His veins have turned to ice, which that man's cold.
But yeah, Katie, how'd you feel about Absolute Batman issue 7?
I mean, I like what it's doing. I like this version of Freeze. I really like the Gotham that we're in. And I thought that the Matches Malone thing was, while not founded in anything really that I feel we already had going, I do feel like it fit in nicely. Like, I at no point was like, oh, well, they haven't talked about matches before, really. So
it was a bit weird with the gigantic supporting cast they had. They were like, new guy to help with this thing. Yes, but I think it worked. I think it worked within the issue very well. But it is very funny that they gave him all these friends, and they were like, we'll just throw in a new
one more. I do think that the fill-in artist did a really good job in the kind of shadowy scenes. So the scenes where he got to go crazy with
Marcus Martin, by the way.
Yeah. With the actual shadows of Gotham. So during the break-in to V-Corps and during the memorial with Bruce and the other Crime Alley kids, I think the art was fine enough there. I didn't really like it in the bright of day scenes. I think
Bruce's face was hilarious. It was too small for the dimensions of his face. All of his features were compressed to the middle.
Yeah, you've got a really tall order doing fill-in art for Dragato, who has such a distinct style. Yeah. And so trying to lift parts of that style, especially with the design of
But I appreciate the artist actually tried, compared to their last fill-in, who just kind of did a different thing. Which I don't think works. I think
you and I tend to have different opinions on the role of a fill-in artist. I am happy with a fill-in artist being pretty divorced from the base style, but since this is a part of a 2-part arc, assuming that the second part of Absolute Zero is also going to be Marcos Martin,
I feel like that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, I would have preferred if they leaned into their own style, or maybe didn't take such a big swing with Dragato's style, because
I think the rough thing, especially when you look at the reception to whatever that first one is, that Absolute Batman is so based in the style that I feel like
that is
it's an even bigger thing to depart from the style than Absolute Batman in particular compared to other books.
That is super fair. It's just not my favorite thing. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. It's just not my favorite answer.
No, you're wrong.
But I did really shut the fuck up. I did really love the colors on the Batman sequence. And it made the night and day of Gotham feel really, really distinct.
I believe it's the same colors.
Again, they did great when they got to use fun colors, even the
which I think helps the style.
Tanzania scene is also very cool.
Yeah, I thought this was a solid issue. It's I think Absolute Batman, it has the direction of Arkham, which is good, and but I feel like it keeps putting things in here that, and not in the way that it's it's slow building things, but just in the way that we get no follow up on them for a while, and then it's Joker's coming, nothing on Joker. Oh, Bane's coming, nothing on Bane. It just feels like it could do a little bit better job of actually following up on the things that it's setting up as we go along. Because all of the issues are really good and well made, but it's just you keep teasing us with things and then not following up at all and doing something else instead, and then teasing something else and then not following up. And so I feel like in its we're 7 issues in now. Yeah. So at its long-term level, I would like a little bit more direction.
Because I think you make a really good distinction there between a tease and a slow burn, because it's not like we're seeing the Joker's plans a little bit in each issue or anything.
Yeah, that would be fine. Even if you jump to the current Titans book, where for a while now we're fully in it, but for a while the end of every issue would progress that tease. where it feels like at the end of a lot of these issues we just get a different tease, and they're not like
Yeah,
continue.
yeah. I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts on Absolute Batman?
I really like this take on Victor Fries. Like I've talked
Right?
about, my big thing, and we'll talk about it across all these books, is my big thing when looking at like Absolute Ultimate books is like I like a new context, but kind of keeping to the cores of the characters. And I
Mhm.
think you dance on the line of like, oh, this just feels nothing like this character, or like, oh, this feels too much the same. This is a really good bridge where I'm like, no, this is a cool way to do this character, where it's still Victor Fries, obviously this one's Junior, but it works really well that it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
the company's actually about preserving people from like, I think that's just a very logical jump to make, and it works really well. So I'm a big fan of this.
And
version
I
of Victor
think
Fries.
this might be. I could be wrong. I'm trying to think back through what we've seen. This might be our first like kind of supernatural villain in Absolute Batman.
I mean,
Because
like we had kind of the. I mean, it depends how you look at Bane, but we had the tease of Bane. Um,
right, but this
but
is
yeah,
our first
I
like
think so.
actual Bruce interacting with something that's like
Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's
not
like it
like
depends on
gang
how.
level.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
I think this is the first thing that's super nat. I mean,
which is
I'd
exciting.
argue some of the stuff that Black Mask survived, he's basically supernatural.
I mean,
But
some of the stuff that Bruce survived, he's basically
it's
supernatural.
true. No, but yeah, no, I do. I think this is our first foray into the supernatural,
Yeah,
which is
which is exciting.
yeah. What
'Cause
books
it's
do we do? What's the order
funky.
here?
Next
I don't
up
know. What's
is
that?
Absolute Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
This is coming to us from writer Kelly Thompson and artist Mattia De Alusis. Hayden Sherman will be back for the next issue. This was
Yes.
Wonder Woman's little 2-issue filler.
Yep.
Imprisoned by Hades and made to fight the Chimera in Hades' combat arena, Diana faces the first of her great challenges from the god of the underworld, and her mother's life is on the line. The battle is intercut with memories of Diana's childhood, showing the kindness of Persephone to young Diana, the cunning of Circe and Hecate as they plot Diana's escape from the underworld, and the stubbornness of Diana herself as she attempts to understand an old story told to her by her mother. These three come together at the conclusion of Diana's fight with the Chimera. Diana prevails and is forced by Hades to kill her opponent, despite her begging him not to make her kill her opponent. And then she faces the second great challenge, 2 doors before her, one that holds certain death and the other that holds freedom. Primed by years of dissecting her mother's story, Diana follows Circe's direction and takes the door to freedom. While Hades believes he has won by permanently separating mother and daughter, Diana returns, revealing that Persephone gave her a pomegranate seed, allowing her to return to the underworld for 1 month of the year. With Hades truly bested in this round, Diana brings her mother back to the Wild Isle and promises to continue her good fight in the land of the living.
Yeah. So this has a lot of Joseph elements in this issue. I love a good combat arena. I feel like I talk about that a ton on the pod. I love a good combat arena. It feels like such a comic book trope, and I love it so much. It's like I think it's my favorite comic book trope.
Because you're
It's
also
so-
a very you're a very antiquity boy. And the combat arena is very like Greek Roman coded.
Yeah, and like Rome is my thing. So it's like, but yeah, in any case, I really like this as a single issue. I think it's really great. I really, really like this villain artist that we talked about in the last issue. I think this villain artist is just phenomenal.
Really phenomenal.
So that really helps. Like this issue that's so built into these powerful visuals. Phenomenal. Really, really good.
We get some of that sick like Greek pottery art.
Yeah. I love that being followed up even without Hayden Sherman drawing this issue. That's awesome. And like, dare I say, this had a better payoff than the first arc that had like 5 issues to do its payoff.
Absolutely did.
So that's really great. I will say, I still think they need to work on making Diana a little bit less perfect and a little bit more, vulnerable and a little bit more like because I just never feel concerned for her like at all.
Right.
Like I want to feel a little bit more concerned that she might lose something, she might die, get hurt, anything. I think that's still a challenge that this book has moving forward. But this issue is really, really good. I like kind of what it sets up. I think I will say the book has to actually treat that month as a real thing. If we go through the next like 20 issues and nothing happens, or like it's just kind of like hand waved and jumped over, I feel like that needs to be an actual thing if you want it to be an actual thing. But other than that, yeah, I thought this was just a great issue. I really, really like this issue of Absolute Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job with it. I do think that the through line of Diana investigating the story was a little goofy. Like, it was a little much.
It's weird because like I get why she had an issue with the story, and I like that. I just don't know how it really relates. Like I get that it's the same situation, but I don't know how like that story. Because if she had never heard the story, presumably she would just assume her mother was telling her the truth. The story would only sound, sow doubt that her mother might be lying to her.
Yeah, that was my thing. It's like, why did you tell Hecate this, or why did you tell Cersei this story, Hecate?
Yeah.
What is it, just for a sense of prophecy? Because again, it feels like, unless it was to make sure Diana looked for a little head tilt, but I feel like, it was a little weird in there.
Yeah.
And like, I'm fine with it in terms of like, I don't know, fun mythological vibes. But on its surface, I was just like, we're spending a lot of time on this story that I feel like has, like, there's nothing to suggest that Cersei would damn Diana to an eternity in hell when she spent so much effort to free her from hell.
Yeah,
that was kind of my hang up with this.
I think it's a bit too on like and I'm somebody who loves a good flashback. I feel like it's a little bit on the books, like feeling a necessity to have flashbacks in every single issue and every single story. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that is unfortunately going to get worse the further we get into the book, because there's going to be less to do in that flashback time. It's going to be like you already hit all the important things. Now you have to shove things between other things and in there. It's like at some point, with me being a huge lover of flashbacks, how we got here backstory, at some point you have to say they have been wrapped up. It is time to just focus on the present and move the story, forward.
Yeah, and I think that part of it comes from how cool Diana in the Wild Isle is. I feel like Volume 1 should have just started with her in hell, and we could have had like all of this cool hell stuff happening.
I feel like it's unfortunately the result of them like not knowing how much they could believe in the Absolute line and not knowing how much, because we talked about that with all the original 3 books, but like they had 1 foot in and 1 foot out of like doing the origins or doing the current. And it's like, okay, you need to pick one. Like, either start at the very beginning, kind of like the original Ultimate Marvel universe. Like, remember when we read the original Ultimate Spider-Man? I don't think he becomes Spider-Man until like the end of that first arc. Either commit to that, or commit to just saying like, okay, here are where these characters are now, and we'll kind of over time give you a little bit of backstory. But they were a little bit 1 foot in each,
which was a little tricky, and I think remains a little tricky. But yeah, this was such a strong single issue. I am really a big fan of this villain artist, but I am very excited for Hayden Sherman to come back, because I feel like I do miss the like specifically the page formatting of Hayden Sherman. They do such a good job with the layouts, and I feel like they're really they're kind of the strongest part of the Absolute Wonder Woman aesthetic.
But we don't have to worry about Hayden Sherman going anywhere. I believe they announced like this week that they signed an exclusive DC contract. So big ups to Hayden Sherman.
The big downs being that means that they aren't doing indie books. And I'm like, what the fuck?
No, usually that just is Marvel DC.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of times the exclusive contract people can still create their own stuff. Other places just not licensed.
Well, that's good. All right. Yeah.
I don't know about their contract, but a lot of times they can still do creative own stuff. So I'll throw that in there for the
Hayden Sherman and Sean Lewis. Give me Above Snakes too. Even higher above Snakes.
Did you just say even higher
above Snakes?
Yeah, I'm wasting time because the credits are not at the beginning of Absolute Superman. I don't know the villain artist's name. Okay, I've gotten there.
He's got it. He's stalled. And all it took was him being mean to me.
Yeah, I mean that's how I stall a lot of the time. You guys would be shocked how often me making fun of Katie is because I'm stalling for something.
It's a win-win for him.
It really is. But in any case, Absolute Superman issue 7 is Jason Aaron writing as usual. But this issue's artist, I want to say last issue too, where we had another issue that was illustrated by Carmine D. Giamenico.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was last issue. It might have been the issue before that. It was one of the issues.
Was it the Oops All Krypton issue?
It might have been. I don't. No, I think that one wasn't. I don't. I don't remember. I think it was last
In
issue.
any
Last issue
case.
was like the Kansas issue, right? Like the flashback
Oh,
Kansas
yeah,
issue.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do. I
It's all
think this is the set.
Kansas.
I think we're just doing in all the books right now. We're doing two issue
Yeah.
villain artists.
Which we miss
But
Rafa Sandoval, but you know,
Yes,
that's all right.
Rafa Sandoval is so freaking good in this book. But anyway, in this issue, we don't have him. But what we do have is a strike force of Omega Men infiltrating a base in the Nevada desert. But quickly, horrific things happen to them. Like their skin shrinks, they puke up their bones. Horrific things. And we see that this is Brainiac. And he importantly mentions to us that he has killed 3 of them and dismembered the final one. The dismembered one is on a like medical table with electronics connected to his limbs, and his brain is in I was gonna say in a jar. It's actually like a ball, kind of like a hamster ball.
Like a hamster ball.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
exactly.
they could be partners forever. Little hamster ball.
Brainiac freaks out over not knowing who Superman is in very un-Brainiac fashion. Main universe Brainiac fashion.
Yeah.
And he starts threatening his miniaturized cities.
Which is so horrifying.
Which I love. And then he just smashes one because they don't have information for him. He then, talking to the guy on the table, tells him that he has anger issues, and he starts speaking to this dismembered man about his origin. We see that this is Brainiac number 419,732 of The Collective. And he is given a shovel by another Brainiac and told to shovel the Brainiacs who refuse his job into Liquidator, and our Brainiac takes this as those Brainiacs being called the Refuse.
I think it's refuse, just like garbage. I don't think they refuse the job. I think they're just spent Brainiacs.
I don't know. He tells Brainiac not to refuse, and then Brainiac says, "What is refuse?" And he says, "That's refuse."
I don't think he does.
He absolutely does.
Am I crazy?
Let me quickly. Not important enough.
Just double checking. To dispose of refuse by shoveling it into the liquidator.
Oh, you're right. I don't know why I thought I remembered him saying "don't refuse" or something, or "Do you want to refuse? Are you trying to refuse?" or something when he asked the question. I'm sorry. In any case,
homonyms are tough.
In any case, we see 3,000 days later that one of the decommissioned Brainiacs attacks him, but Brainiac kills him with his shovel. 10,000 days later, Brainiac seems to have completely lost his mind as he has strung up other Brainiacs to talk to. He now has weird wires plugged into his head, seeming to be closer to his final form that Katie had held up earlier there. And after nearly 50,000 days, his job is done. His brain is now exposed. I don't want to know why he did that or how he did that. And he goes out into the ship to find what seems to be the main Brainiac sitting with a blaster in his hand and his brains blown out. Brainiac deems him to be more Refuse, and he promotes himself up to the top level of Brainiac. Back on Earth, we see the Brainiac call a meeting with other Brainiacs where he's trying to learn about Krypton, about Superman, and he does learn about Krypton and a meteorite from the planet that is radioactive. He quickly ends the meeting when the other Brainiacs start to question who called this meeting, because our Brainiac is not actually really part of the collective. And we see that Brainiac has the kryptonite now, which is that meteorite, and then he goes to where Peacemaker Smith has been rebuilt as a cyborg, and he tells him that his skills are needed in Kansas.
Ooh. Horrifying. I adored this issue.
It was so freaking good.
I love a funky robot. Like this type of mad robot is so good to me. It's so fun. Like the fact that this is a Brainiac who has divorced himself from the Brainiac collective and is doing his own thing is so cool. I think that it makes him such a good personal villain. I think that it makes him feel so much scarier because he's not beholden to structures or greater plans. Like, he is the big bad of, you know, his own story. Like, he's not answering to anyone
He's
except for
answering to
maybe Ra's
Ross.
al Ghul. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's literally the underling in this
Well,
situation.
no, that's still like one man, as opposed to like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
if you defeat this Brainiac, a
No, no,
million more
no,
Brainiacs.
absolutely. Which is very
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
to be like, he's the. I'm like, I don't think he is our big bad here. No, I love it. It's very similar to Victor Freeze. Where I'm like, this is a good remixing where you're not
Mhm.
losing who he is, but it's very cool to have a Brainiac who's like, instead of comical and collected, it's like out of his mind.
Yes.
Um, I love that. It's really great.
I also absolutely loved the art in this issue. I think that
Yeah,
this
it's
is
really good.
absolutely phenomenal. The just piles of Brainiacs, so cool. Everything about this, the
It's just good
emotion on
visuals.
Brainiac's face when he's like in his fits of anger, so great. I absolutely, they've done such a good job with these villain artists for the most part.
Agreed. And I think we had mentioned, I think in the last, or maybe the issue, like it feels like Absolute Superman's really getting on track recently, and
Yes.
this feels like another really good issue in that sense. Where I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
compared to what I kind of complained about in Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman at least really does seem to know like its big bads and who's building up, and it is touching on it constantly and
Oh
fleshing
yeah.
it out. And like I have the clear direction of where we're going in
Hmm.
Absolute Superman. I know what the end goal is, more so than Absolute Batman, where I'm a little
Yeah.
bit unsure, and Absolute Wonder Woman, where I just don't think we've gotten there yet. I don't know that Absolute Wonder Woman has even really teased what
Given
the
us an end
kind of the big
goal.
thing is going to be. But yeah, so I think in terms of long term plans, I think Absolute Superman right now
Mhm.
is actually, despite being I think the one that we thought of the weakest start, the one that's in my opinion on the best track of
Though I think
where it wants to
it's a
go.
little funny because I feel like it and Absolute Batman are just totally flipped in that with Absolute Superman we know so much about what's going on with the villains, but
Yeah,
Superman himself we have very little like present day information on.
yeah.
And
Last issue though did a lot
all
of
of
heavy lifting, I think, in the Superman
yes,
department.
yeah. But then also all of the like Lois and Jimmy stuff, we don't have a lot of information on. So while
Yeah,
Batman, we
that's true.
have all of this like expanded cast and we know
Yeah,
what's going on with them. Whereas the villains are a little murkier. In Absolute Superman, we've got all these villains, but then it's like,
very true.
okay, but aren't Lois and Jimmy becoming friends with Superman? And aren't they on
Yeah,
opposite sides of a war? And so like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm
yeah.
really excited to see come.
And then you got Absolute Wonder Woman, where we have Cersei and Wonder Woman, and we have no idea what's going on with anybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, honestly, this was a good issue. I think for Absolute Superman,
Yes.
we're on a good track, and I'm
Agreed.
excited to see where we go.
Yeah.
But in any
But where
case,
we're gonna go is to Absolute Flash, number
yes,
2. This has the iconic writer Jeff Lemire with Nick Robles as the artist. Look, I know they're all iconic writers in this line.
yeah, it was
For
just
the
very
most
funny
part.
to say that after like Scott Snyder, Jason Aaron, Kelly Thompson, like we're kind of
I
big on
mean,
that.
yeah,
And
but I
also,
feel
I
like,
feel like Jeff Lemire is like, I don't know, he's known as like an iconic writer artist. So like
I
the
mean,
line
yeah,
iconic
but
writer Jeff
also
Lemire
a
is very
writer.
funny.
Didn't he do
Yeah,
a
yeah,
really long stint on the Flash?
I think
Yeah,
so. Maybe
yeah.
I don't know. I don't read
I'm
Flash.
99% sure. I'm 99% sure that
Yeah.
he's like a
Anyway,
very
no.
iconic Flash
I just
writer.
have to, I have to laugh at you sometimes. It's, it's
He's
part
not
of
even
the charm of
stalling
the
for anything
podcast.
this time.
I'm not. It's your turn.
All right, well, Absolute Flash number 2 picks up pretty much right where we left off. Barry Allen is dead, and the Rogues are after Wally West. Wally is still not in control of his speed, and he's tripping between these different timelines and these different places on his own timeline. He's using his bursts of speed and presumably some sort of Speed Force energy bursts to evade the Rogues multiple times, darting into these other spots in time by accident and very chaotically. He watches his father attacking Barry once his father realizes that Barry had something to do with his son. In that kind of lost time we still have where Wally gets his powers.
Yeah.
But we see Barry in presumably a Flash suit, which is quite cool. And he Barry tries to help Wally when he pops out there. But we also see him jump back into his childhood, where he's actually happy with his family. And then he jumps into his future, where the Flash is either going to be a hero or a monster. And he doesn't know which one, and he doesn't know what to make of all of this. As he escapes the rogues one last time, because he gets trapped in a bubble, he gets away. He zooms, uses his little flash powers, and the rogues now have no choice but to unleash their secret weapon, Absolute Garad, who amazingly is a little alien,
a little chimp,
a tiny little alien monkey. He's beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I do. I think the Grodd thing's fun. I'll be interested to see how the Grodd works out. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's just going to lean real hard into the psychic powers, considering his brain is out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I hope the personality's at least similar. Otherwise, it kind of starts to fall into the like, oh, maybe it'll just be so different. But also Grodd's not a character that I'm super gonna care if he's super different. But that's all. I'm trying to be even on these things instead of caring more about the characters that I care more about.
For sure.
Absolute Flash is such a cool book. I will say, and after 2 issues of it now, I do think these issues are a little, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, are a little breezy. Like, I don't know that we're covering a ton of ground, for 2 issues here, but it's an ongoing, so it doesn't super have to.
It just worries me in the way that Absolute Wonder Woman went, where it's like, okay, are we going to get to the end of this first arc and have not moved anywhere?
Yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, they need to, and I think it's the thing of, like, if you listen to the podcast a lot, it's like, well, why don't you complain when, like, Void Rivals, like, you compliment Void Rivals for doing this, and then you complain about it, like, because Void Rivals doesn't get to the end of 6 issues and be like, oh, now we have to wrap up the arc, despite the fact that we've been moving, slower. Whereas, like, a lot of times these, like, big 2 books still feel the need to have, like, those arc enders for, I assume,
those, like, volume enders.
Yeah, where it's like, it's fine to move this, slow, but then you just need to not feel the need to wrap up your current story once you get to 6 issues. But I feel like this book, I give a lot of leeway with it because it's just so freaking cool. Like, it's got a lot of great concepts, a lot of great visuals, and that extends beyond the art into, like, the lettering is phenomenal. Like, all the, like, layered lettering when he's kind of frazzled is really, really great. It blends into, like, the art and the lines of the lightning a lot. Like, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff visually in this book.
Letters coming to us from Tom Napolitano.
Yeah, big shout out there. But yeah, like, I feel like I want a little bit more in terms of, like, I don't know, kind of saying anything, but, like, I want either more plot or more character. I think, like, we get a decent amount of, like, Wally's concerns here, but I don't know that we really know who Wally is yet, if that makes sense. So I want either more of that or I want more plot. Only 2 issues though, so it's not like taking away from my enjoyment of Absolute Flash, which I still think is potentially my favorite of the new wave of books. I think it's very cool, and I think in terms of, like, what it's bend on the traditional Flash, I think that it has a really good bend. It still feels Flash, even though it's different.
Yeah. I think that I agree with a lot of your points. I do think that the art does a lot of great lifting in this book. Because, like you said, they do so many cool things that really keep you interested on the page when not a lot is happening. And I understand that with, I feel like it's kind of a classic speedster thing to be like, oh, geez, I'm out of control and everything's weird around me because you're, like, jumping through time or moving through space and all that stuff. I do think that it's tough to make that super interesting on the page if you're not stopping to live in those moments. And I do think that this book does a good job of stopping and living in the moments in the past, but then not really letting us live in the moments in the present.
You'd actually think, if anything, it would be the opposite. It's like, oh, like, he'll be in his main time mostly, and then every now and then he'll slip quickly into the other time and then come back. But the main, like, his current day, I guess is what I'll call it, is something we get very, like, he's just running from the rogues, and we get, like, no actual. The rogues are cool though. I like Captain Boomerang a lot.
Love Boomerang. I'm always a Captain Cold stan. So I absolutely love him.
Is great, but I really like cool. the energy boomerangs. I don't know.
Yes,
cool.
Yeah, no, it's all really fun. And I think that's a big thing about this book that we talked about a little bit last month, where this is a book that feels like it's willing to be a little more fun, a little more, like, high energy. Like, they're not trying to do a particularly gritty Flash, whereas
which is nice when every other Absolute book
Yeah.
is kind of leaning that direction.
Exactly.
Which is fine. I'm here for gritty story, but it's nice to
For
feel
sure.
like we have more of a
And like he's
spectrum.
certainly sad Flash.
Yeah.
Like, but Flash is always sad about his mom being dead.
Yeah. It's a more high energy book, I'd say. Like, you know,
Yes,
like
yeah.
it's got a good
Mhm.
got a good vibe. Anyway.
High octane.
Yeah, high octane. Great little pun there.
Thank
Like it's
you.
not a pun, it's a
Not
word.
really.
It's because it just is what it is, but it, you know,
Yeah.
word association.
There you go. In any case, yeah, I'm really excited to keep reading The Flash. I think that
Yeah.
it is also probably my favorite of the new wave of books, which is saying something because I think I like Martian Manhunter a little more than you do.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it after this
Yeah,
issue. But yeah, after the
exactly,
first
but-
issue,
but-
you certainly liked it.
Yeah.
Whether
But yeah, so I think they're doing a really fun job. And I can't wait to read more of it. But are we ready to talk about Absolute Martian Manhunter?
let's do it.
All right. Well, this is coming to us from writer Denise Camp and artist Javier Rodriguez. All right. If y'all remember, first issue, bit of a trip. This one, less so, mostly. So John, our human man, is a man possessed. Quite literally, he's sharing his what?
You just going, our human man is so
Well,
funny.
there's also the Martian floating around. It's hard to differentiate them when they're, you know, sharing a brain, body, and thoughts. The Martian is calling itself the Martian Man Blanker, like it's a bunch of asterisks, and then it keeps filling in like hunt,
Is it
kill,
mind?
heal. Yes. My
Yeah,
bad.
the Martian man would be a weird thing for him to call himself.
The Martian Man Fucker.
This feels like another situation where you know, just quickly, Tony, where Scott
Yeah.
Snyder wanted to call Absolute Batman, you know, AF.
Batman
It
as
feels
fuck.
like they wanted to call this book the Martian, you know,
Mind Fucker.
Yeah. But they
Which
were.
honestly
they were
I
like
kind of love. Especially for this weird Martian Manhunter. This is definitely we'll talk about it after the
Yeah. You go
definitely
back
one
in
that
your summary.
departs.
I derailed you a little bit there.
But yeah, it doesn't know if it's here to hunt, kill, heal, or whatever, but it can sense a danger to the whole planet lurking. While John is snatching newspapers, talking to parking meters, and yelling at babies, still trying to figure out what's real and what's in his head. Spoiler, the things in his head are in fact real. A delusional terrorist is preparing to commit a mass shooting, convinced that there are aliens body snatching people, and the only solution is to kill them all. Which we'll also, I'm sure, touch on during our discussion. The Martian tells John this, but the FBI agent doesn't act until it's too late. He's called in by the FBI since he's close by, and when he arrives on the scene, the Martian jumps from him to the gunman, revealing the gunman's psyche to John. John uses that information to stall the gunman while the Martian starts to detangle the mess of conspiracies and delusions within the man's mind. But just as they break through, backup arrives and takes out the gunman with a shot to the head. John is faced with the reality of the Martian in his head as he lays down at the end of the night, and the Martian sharing their existence on the page. He and the Martian vibing. Like, I love this ending panel. I think that is such a vibe.
It is. It's one. I think it's the only time in this book that they do but I think they do it once in the last issue too, where they like just draw him as the
I think so too.
the Martian at one panel. But in any case,
Jay,
yes.
Martian Manhunter, absolute.
Yeah, absolute. This is an interesting one. Like I'm still after issue 2, I'm not sure how I feel about this book. It's a weird one for sure.
Yeah.
It's one that I think is teetering the line and maybe going a bit too far in the sense of like just being so different from the main universe.
I would agree that it's definitely too far.
Yeah, where I'm like, I just don't. Sometimes I just like I get to the point where I'm like, well, why are you doing an alternate version of this character if it's not an alternate version of this character? Like it's not even John Jones, you know, like it's not him. Like it's not even an alternate universe version of him. It's an alternate universe version of like the identity on a character who has a phonetically the same name, you know.
Like this is one of those books where like because what I want to say is that even though it's like completely too far not be a Martian Manhunter, I still actually quite like the book. But this is one of
I
those
think it's a
things,
good book,
yeah,
absolutely well made. I thought this issue in particular was really interesting
right?
and
But I
uh,
I can so
visionary.
clearly see like 10, 15 years in the future, someone be like Martian Manhunter books to read, and they start with this one because it's like well reviewed or whatever,
Yeah,
and then they're just like totally fucked on who the Martian Manhunter is.
and especially like in your big alternate, it's like there are going to be people
Yeah.
who are reading this as like their first exposure to a character. So like, yeah, I get it. You know, I understand, especially like with the because like this is something that I don't think Marvel is super doing. Like they're doing some weird things, more so than their original Ultimate Universe, but they're still, I think, keeping closer to the characters than necessarily DC is. But
Hmm.
like, I think DC's methodology of like we're gonna grab the biggest writers we can who have worked with us for the longest time possible. It breeds this because they've just written the characters for so long. You give them
Yeah.
Ultimate Universe. Let me get as far away from that as possible, which is why I give Jeff Lemire a lot of credit if he has in fact written Flash for a long time. The fact that he still went with something that's very resembling is great. And also, we'll talk about it in the next book. But Al Ewing's never written Green Lantern before, so I don't know why he decided that he needed to go like to the opposite side of the universe. But in any case, yeah, it's a very well made issue. So I don't want to like talk. It's very good. It's enticing. I'm invested in the book, which like as a book thing is great. But like I don't know that I'm, especially because DC again versus like it's hard not to keep comparing the Ultimate and Absolute universes, but DC's Absolute Universe feels like it's built to actually be put up against the main universe because they're already building out the crossover and they're already getting the point where it's going to play with the main universe. Like I don't know that I'm excited to see this Martian Manhunter on like a Justice League team or in a team up. Like he doesn't feel like he fits with
No,
superheroes, you
not at
know?
all.
So I
Like,
don't know. Maybe that's why this was originally going to be like the one mini out of the group, because they were going to kind of just let it
mhm.
like and then be. But then at that point, like that's the thing. I don't know if this needs to be in the Absolute Universe. I feel like this could have been like a Black Label, its own
Yeah.
thing book.
And like I feel like the big tripping point for me is that this could be any Martian. Like any DC universe Martian. Like
Well, it's not even like
John
a real
is not
Martian.
exactly, that's what I was gonna say. John is not unique in his powers. Like
Yeah,
that's just what the Martians do. And so there was really no need for this to be the absolute Martian Manhunter book. When
yeah.
it's like, okay, you could just do this weird like Martian Mindhunter book. I think Mindhunter might be copyrighted, which might also be why they do the asterisks.
Mhm.
Because I think that's a game or something. Um,
Yeah, you're right. This actually could have just been like a character in the main universe. They could have just
yeah,
been like, this is a different character doing a
like cool. We're
thing.
expanding the Martian family. Uh, but I do really like the book. Is the problem that
Yeah,
I have? It
it's
does
just
do something
it's
that
so
we've
well
talked
made.
about with other books, where it's weird to make a conspiracy bad guy who's right. Like obviously
Yeah,
this,
I will say this time I think the book at least like knew that it was doing
yes,
that, whereas
yeah,
other books feel like unaware. Like this book did treat his death like it was like an unfortunate thing. At least like this book seemed to know that it was doing this thing where it was like, okay, he's kind of right, and then
but it
unfortunately
also
he gets shot as we talked him down. I agree. I still love, but at least I like it better in this book than in a lot of the other books. See where the book just seems completely unaware of what they're doing. You know?
see in this one I thought it was particularly weird because they have him escalate to being like a mass shooter, and then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, but like we can untangle it, and oh, what a shame that he was taken down. Because it's like, okay, but also, like, you made him right about the fact that there are aliens
Yeah.
here. Um, but then he wasn't like a funny conspiracy theorist or anything.
No.
Like, he was
I
as serious as a conspiracy
yeah.
theorist can get.
I think the vibe they were going for, which I think his appearance being like not that it was short, but at least like the final confrontation being kind of
Hmm.
I guess well, it still wasn't that short, but like diffused in a weirdly short way. I guess
Yeah.
I guess more just the quick nature of his death. Uh, I think what they were going for was more of like a this is what like knowing about aliens or being like mind fucked in this way can do to somebody. Like it can just
Yeah.
completely make you lose it and like go to this level. Um, yeah, like I said, I do think the execution was a bit weird. But I
I
think
did
I
love
think
the
they were
aesthetic
going
of
for
him
something
being shot.
nuanced at least, instead of just like, look at this crazy conspiracy theorist. These people are so
Yes,
stupid.
yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. Yeah, and I really liked what it was showing the Martian doing, because I think that that's like, I guess
Yeah.
I what I'll say is I'm hesitantly excited about what it showed the Martian doing, because the idea of the Martian going in and like detangling the mind is so like fucked. Like
I'm
that
still
is
I'm also just still so interested to see like where the Martian actually did come from, like what we're gonna land on for that.
yeah,
Like, is it just a part of his psyche? Is it an alien? Because
certainly not, because I think we know that it's not a part of his psyche by now, because the things that he knows from the Martian are
yeah, but I'm
true.
saying like maybe he got powers from something and it like splits it out. Like
Okay,
I
okay,
think
gotcha.
there's
Oh, okay,
arguments to
I
be made that
understand.
it's still like kind of from within,
Gotcha.
him in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
way.
I
Like
thought you meant
we
is he just delusional?
no. Like, did it come from within? Like, would the separate personality be kind of like in a Hulk, sense where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
you have very real powers, but the separate identities is like a dissociative
Yeah,
identity thing. Like, is it something like that? Is he an actual alien? In which case, it seems weird that he wouldn't just be a Martian. So like, I don't know where we're gonna land on this Martian coming from. And I
yeah.
feel like that's gonna be an interesting thing
And I'm
to see
wondering if
what
they're
that.
going to explore the fucked nature of going in and changing someone's brain. Because obviously this man had
Yeah,
a bad brain. It was like
yeah,
we saw him literally manipulating the like wild tinfoil ball
yeah,
inside the man's brain so that he wouldn't, be influenced by conspiracy theories and shit like that anymore.
yeah.
And the man like was horrified by what he had done. Um, but that's such a wild thing. Like I feel like as soon as your character is messing with someone's brain, it's like okay,
Oh yeah.
ethical dilemma up the wazoo.
It's like the Young Justice thing where they went down that pathway where like
Yes,
Miss
right,
Martian was
yeah,
like fucking with everybody's brains, and then kind of, I think at some point realized that there was no coming back from that, and then just kind of like moved on and like didn't actually address the fact that she had just started fucking with a bunch of people's brains.
oh,
So hopefully this isn't that, and we get an actual exploration as to like the nuances of that.
yeah. Like I would love to explore
I
John
also have
Fred.
I have a weird feeling that we're going to end up with either main universe or like main universe Jean's powers in this universe in some way because of all the stuff that's been going on with main
That's fair
universe
because his
Jean and his
powers
powers.
are floating around. They're
Yeah.
currently in Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah.
If you want
So
all the information on that, check out our regularly scheduled episodes
yeah.
on Wednesdays
Hell,
where we talk about.
maybe that's the really weird reveals that it's going to be like a part of main universe Jean's powers that have
Oh,
come and
that could
somehow
be
end
very
up in the
funky.
universe.
That could be
Yeah.
very funky.
Anyway,
But
that's
yeah, Absolute Martian Manhunter. It's a weird one.
it's a very weird
I
one.
really like it as a book. I don't really like it as a Martian Manhunter book.
Yeah, I think we're in
Um,
full agreement basically
mhm,
at this point on that because that's where I'm at.
yeah,
It's like very, very well made comic book, but like not Martian Manhunter.
yeah. Uh, but we have one more Absolute book to run through, and that's going
We're
to be
going to talk about.
Absolute Green Lantern.
So we've got writer Al Ewing and artist colorist Janoy Lindsay. So in this issue, we pick up exactly where we left off in the last issue. Still in the bar, Joe and Hal talk about what happened to his hand. Importantly, letting us know that Joe seemingly did not know that this happened to his hand, so maybe it comes later. We're kind of jumping back and forth between the two
Yeah.
times. But in any case, he actually calls it the Black Hand here, and he tells Joe that it acts out when he thinks he's in danger or when he feels threatened, but he can't hold it back, and he importantly states that it doesn't work from willpower. How would he know that? Who knows? But
Well, because
Because-
he says that he like puts all of his willpower into it.
yeah, but that feels like something like a Hal Jordan who had been a Green Lantern and like knows about like using willpower to control somebody would say. Like, it feels like a weird thing for him to be like, it doesn't work from willpower because I can't will it from to stop. Anyway, we then flash back to where crazy alien Abensur. He's telling everybody to be without fear, and Police Chief Guy Gardner tries to talk to him, but is told that he doesn't exist in the spectrum of light. As Abensur starts making these crazy green lights, and all the cops pull guns on him because he's being a little sus. Joe crazily starts yelling at all the cops to not, do anything because it's just an alien, and you gotta chill with the aliens.
I
It's
mean, I
first
think what
contact.
she specifically says is that like his spaceship was big enough to kill a bunch of bikers, so like don't aggravate the alien.
She leans really hard on like the first contact thing, and it was very interesting. I don't know if this show's like a sci-fi nut, but it feels like she is. She's talking about first contact. But anyway, after this kind of conversation, like Guy relents, in very un-Guy Gardner-esque, fashion, and he tells his cops to lower their weapons, and then Abin Sur seemingly explodes Guy, saying that he has been judged. If that is the end of Guy Gardner in this book, why? Why? The
Why
cops
even
start.
make a guy?
Yeah, honestly, because he doesn't even do the like. You would make a guy if you're like, I want people to know why this guy won't back down or do it. But he has the cops stand down. Like that's such an un-Guy thing to have him do for like his one thing here. So then the cops all start shooting, and Abin Sur, very like without much effort, just starts like slashing through them. So John and Joe try to help one cop named Roy, whose hand has been cut off. Hal, however, grabs his gun and points it at Abin Sur. John, leaving Joe to tend to the wounded man alone, gets between Hal and Abin, talking Hal down, and he leans into the like, you're fucked if you do this. Don't.
Yeah.
He's like, you will at least lose that hand. And then Abin Sur tells John to be without fear before he flies off into the sky. And then back in the present, Hal has reconjured the gun from his black hand, letting us know that apparently he can do that. And then he tells Joe that she should leave because the hand seeks light. We then jump back to John, Joe, and Hal in the bar, talking about Roy, and John holds up a ring, saying that he knows how to take out Abin Sur. In a cool page. I like that page.
Yeah. I actually really like the art on this book a lot. It's like very, very manga, very anime inspired. I don't like the
faces. I think because it's so like it's a weird. It's got a like weird quality to it where they like. I don't know.
I really like the faces. Like I really like the art in this book, and specifically this panel of Hal pointing the gun at Abin Sur is so beautiful. Like
it's got
that,
good, like action and energy to it for sure.
Yes. It's absolutely gorgeous. I am so into this art. I think that it's so good. And I think that it does something really interesting in that I feel like most modern comics don't stick to like, I don't know, a white border page with fully segmented panels. Like most people are trying to do like, do the most with their layouts, which I also love, but it does make it really exciting to see like if you go from your white bordered pages to like your full splash page, it really does make a big impact when you turn that page. And so I really like the art in this. I actually quite like the vibe of Hal with this volatile black hand. I think that that's going to create a really cool tension. I think this is also one though that is going to struggle with flashback versus present.
I agree. It's another one that hasn't moved very far. Like it feels like we've gotten at most one issue of content in these two issues. This issue in particular really didn't do much. Like it has that one sequence, like is a great emotional and important sequence with the flashback to Abin Sur. But that's like the only sequence in this book that did anything. Like the rest is basically them standing around talking, which is, not great comic booking. I feel, that is something where I think the artist at least helped because he's like doing cool things with Hal's hand and stuff in those sequences, which is nice. And with Joe's, great. I do like Joe's design in this a lot. I think it's quite good. But there's also another woman that I think is struggling with being very, very different from the main universe. Counterpart. Like we mentioned, Guy. What's going on? Like Guy, I don't think got to be Guy at all. I think Hal's in a weird place where I'm not sure that he's really going to get to be Hal. Like he got the nice moment of holding up the gun to I was about to say Sodom instead of Abin. Joe feels very similar to her main universe counterpart, which is interesting that the rest kind of feel like fairly big departures, and she's fairly similar.
I think the really tricky thing with this book is that there hasn't been a lot of chance for character, because the character that we saw before Evan dropped his giant spaceship was very brief, very casual,
Yeah.
and such an extreme thing is happening to them that
Yeah.
like the fact that Hal's reaction is to like stare in horror. One, it tells you about who he is as a character, which is different than regular Hal.
Yeah.
But it doesn't leave a lot of room for him to be doing things. Like it feels like the
Yeah.
hand has taken a lot of things out of his control,
Yeah.
which
Agreed.
then makes it difficult to characterize someone because
And
most
yeah.
of his characters focused on controlling this hand.
And then I want to talk about John's character, because I think, especially with him getting like the big issue ender here, he's got no character in the first two. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like that moment felt a little unearned when like his main character, like he talks down Hal, which is nice, but like it happens, it's just like, oh, he's kind of doing some medical stuff, and oh, he's kind of like he feels very like shunted off to the side right now, and then he's like pulled in for this big end issue moment. And it's like, I don't know who he is. Like it feels like they are going with the like, oh, he's the one who was cool under pressure, and like he knows.
Mhm.
But we didn't really get that outside of the fact that he was doing things under pressure, which is like, I don't know. It feels more like the book didn't focus on whether or not he was, struggling with it, than it was like, oh, he's
Yeah.
just not struggling with it, So, yeah, I don't know. I think the challenge of introducing all of these Green Lanterns at the same time is a decision that I don't know was,
you're inherently
they
going to have
messed
less
up on
time
themselves.
to explore each one of
Yeah.
them.
And I think it's a thing that a lot of things struggle with now, and they're like, we have all these Green Lanterns, we need to figure out. It's like the comics introduced them over a long period, outside of the bunch that have been introduced in the last like 15 years. But for the most part, introduced these slowly over large periods of time, and I think you lose something when you're trying to shove them all in here and have it happen like all of them at the same time.
For sure. Yeah.
So there's my.
Yeah, I actually quite like it. I feel like issue 1 I was really not hype on. I actually quite liked issue 2. I think that the sitting around and talking was actually really well intercut with the big action of Evan Sur, like killing people and reflecting things. And I think this is definitely one of those books where you mentioned before trying not to be biased about the ones that for characters you love and characters you don't. I have truly like no dog in the fight with Green Lantern. Like Kyle is my favorite, but he's not even here. And so I am getting the blessing of just kind of receiving it as it is. And I'm like, oh, this is neat. They're doing so many cool things, as opposed to going in with a sense of like, I would like this to be, as good for this character as Absolute Batman is for Batman.
Yeah. And I think it's something with something, but it's like, oh, okay, yeah, Batman gets to be Batman. Superman, even though it changes, gets to be Superman. Flash gets to be Flash. Superman's still Superman,
he doesn't
right?
really get to do anything.
Oh yeah, but it's not like we're not sitting there. It's like, oh, he's actually gonna be Lex Luthor in this universe, and then like like with the Hal being Black Hand. It's like we're not sitting there. It's like, oh, he's gonna be like Barry dies, but Barry also dies in the main content. Like I'd be a lot less upset if the opening of this book was Hal being Green Lantern and like dying, and then it went to somebody else, than I am in it like being that he's just not gonna be Green. Like if that makes sense, I'd be more okay being the Flash person where Wally's there and Barry's dead. Like I feel like Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern fans kind of come into this and it's just like, that thing you love, this isn't gonna be it, and these characters aren't gonna get to be who they are, and just deal with it, and like I get that, that's fair, but it's not something that I love.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's definitely a different audience thing. Like I'm saying, like no dog in the race for Green Lantern. Green Lantern is your favorite character. Like it's incredibly different reading experiences.
Yeah,
like if Absolute Batman was bad, I would have been very upset.
Yeah. But it's like, what if Absolute Batman was let me think, who's like the fifth? I guess Damian. If Absolute Batman was Damian becoming Batman, Bruce becoming the Joker, and who died in this guy? So that's number 2, and Dick Grayson dying immediately without showing any of his characterization. Like like that's
exactly.
What this
that's
is.
It. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I am.
But I'm
very
saying, it's not
being
bad. It could be incredibly made. And like if that was the book, you'd still probably be like, oh no, Dick died without doing anything. Damian's Batman for some reason, and
this is how I feel about the Injustice universe.
Because Dick dies I think, decently into that though, right? I feel like there's
Yeah,
a
like
solid
30 issues or
amount of
something.
issues. Yeah.
But then it goes
maybe it
on
does
for
then
like
just
90
become-
more.
Yeah. And then there's
In any
the
case.
Injustice 2 issues, comics too. There's
Yeah.
a lot of Injustice.
There's a
comics.
lot of injustice out there.
Yeah. In any case, though, that's the Absolute Universe this month. What was your favorite of these books? How do you feel about all of the books and the reinterpretations of the characters, especially Absolute Green Lantern and Absolute Martian Manhunter? Are you okay with the big departures? And especially if you're new, kind of, to any of these characters or to picking up comics. I feel like we'll get a lot from people who are just so used to like alternate universe takes and stuff. Like it's
right.
fine, but I'm interested to hear if anybody's kind of new to this stuff and like maybe Green Lantern from the animated shows, or maybe Martian Manhunter from the animated shows. I was hoping one of them had something else, but they really
don't.
Don't.
With the Green Lantern movie.
I was gonna say, if you know Green Lantern from the 2011 movie, you're probably not going to be upset that this is a departure. But yeah, if you know them from other things like that, how does this land for you? Yeah, I don't know. I asked a bunch of questions there. Answer any of them.
Answer them down below.
But yeah, as usual, it was fun talking Absolute books. We have a lot more to come. We have a whole playlist of all the other Absolute reviews throughout the months. We have other videos. We had a main episode go up on Wednesday. I can't remember what we reviewed. I was trying to
Crush Depth number 2.
There you go. Nothing else. Amazing Spider-Man issue 2 as well, I believe.
3,
right? Or was
I
that
believe.
3? Already
Yeah.
on 3? Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, we've been talking about Amazing Spider-Man moving quick.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope to see you next week. Comic Geeks.